guys, ETJ Writes here. It is June, so it's time to talk about what I'm reading this month. Actually, I want to kick off things by discussing what I've recently finished reading. The first book I finished reading was Druid by Jeff Wheeler, and it takes place in the past of the Muirwood series. I'm really enjoying it so far. It's really cool because there's a lot woven in from the history of the Reformation, but putting in a fantasy setting, but it's also combined with his Merlin setting that he's done before, which is kind of cool. Like, he has a really neat way of combining history and folklore and everything and making it in his stories. So I really love when I'm reading one of his stories and I'm like, wait a second, that seems familiar, but he's put his own twist on it. It does make some of the plot points a little bit transparent because I can kind of figure out what's coming based on history, but at the same time, he does subvert expectations with that as well, which is really fun. And like I said, I enjoyed the first book so far. The next one is coming out in September, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. The second book I recently finished was City on the Sea by Heather Carson. This book was described as a dystopian piece of fiction, and it definitely was. It doesn't feel that way when you first start reading it. It's a little bit like The Giver. The more you read it, the more you're like, something is very wrong here. And by the time you get to the end of the book, you feel just this horrible, sick sense of dread. I mean, I was not expecting the story to go the direction it did, and I can't say pleasantly surprised because I didn't feel good when I finished reading this book, but the story did what it was supposed to do. It made me feel a lot of emotions, and I enjoyed it so much. Well, I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but I enjoyed the experience, I guess, that I went ahead and I grabbed the rest of the books in the series. They're all on Kindle Unlimited, so I can read them or listen to them all that way. And when I say listen, I just use the automated voice on my iPhone to get my Kindle to read out loud to me. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of them and seeing how this story plays out. Will it stay a true dystopia where things are horribly wrong, or will there be some type of hope? The third book I've been reading is The Half-Blood Mage by Ginger Lee. I ran across this book on Instagram probably a year ago and just now have gotten around to reading it. The summary looked really cool, and I was happy to spread some awareness about the book when it first came out, and now that I'm reading it, I like it. It could be more inventive in certain areas. Sometimes the hero falls a little bit flat for me. She's just doing things because she has to do them. But overall, it's a fun fantasy story. I don't know if I'll really want to read the rest of them, but if I were younger, 15, 16, I could see this being a really fun book to read. The next book I've really been enjoying is We Survivours. I love a good survival story, and I love a good post-apocalyptic story, and this is both of those. This one also takes you in directions that you are definitely not expecting, but they're really fun surprises. I really like the characters. I wasn't so thrilled about the first person, but I have just come to accept it. Sometimes it is a little bit difficult for me to tell apart who is who, even though it says on the chapter headings who's speaking. But if I don't pay attention to that and my eyes skip over it, it takes me a minute to realize whose perspective I am in again at that point. But I really like where this is going. This feels like it's the setup to the beginning of a series. Again, I don't know if it'll capture me enough for me to want to continue with it, but I like where it has been heading so far, and I'm interested in seeing how it ends up. The last book that I've been reading is Starfarers, and this one is another one where the end of this book is going to lead us into the rest of the series. At the end of the description, it says, the US government has decided to reassess the spacecraft's objectives to place the vessel in the hands of the military. Victoria Mackenzie has other ideas, and she plans to uphold the Starfarers' original scientific purposes, even if it means hijacking the ship. And that part is all in italics, so that's the most interesting part. However, we are this far through the book, which is just got up to chapter 12, and at the end of chapter 11 is when they discuss hijacking the ship. So if this were going to be the focus of the book, then it would have happened, like at this point in the story, a little bit more than 25-30% of the way through, and not more than half of the way through. So you can see, oh, this is the setup to a series. Now, the characters are all done really, really well. There's a fairly large cast, but the author does a great job of keeping everything together and really having fun with the sci-fi elements. I love that the internet is called Arachne. I also think it's really cool, like some of the things that she thinks would have happened in the future. Although it's hard to tell how far in the future this is. There is some reference to people's great-great-grandparents, but without mentioning how long people live, it can be a little bit nebulous as to how far in the future. But it doesn't feel that far off from our own time. It definitely feels far off from the 80s when this was written, but not that far off from our own time. There's some unconventional things in here, but otherwise I'm really enjoying this book and I'm excited to see where it goes. This is one that I do think I am going to pursue the rest of the series and see if there is intelligent life in the universe of this story. Well, that's what I am reading for this month. I'm really excited to finish all of them and get a new crop of books for next time. I've been able to read a lot faster this past month than I was the previous months, so excited about that. And until I see you guys next time, happy reading.